A recent video on the X platform shows Chinese police officers using excessive force against a woman riding an electric scooter. The footage captures 4 officers forcibly dragging her to the ground. Some users familiar with the situation explain that the police were stopping all electric scooters on that stretch of road to issue fines. After the incident went viral online, local authorities promised an investigation into the officers involved, but no further updates have emerged. The misuse of power by Chinese police and traffic officers for arbitrary fines is a long-standing issue. However, a recent video on China's TikTok platform Douyin has highlighted criticism of the government's reliance on fines as a primary source of revenue, drawing more attention to this growing problem.
地方财政没钱了怎么办？靠罚款呢？
What do you do when local government finances run out of money? You rely on fines. In Hexin Town, Lenshuijiang City, 2 public officials demanded that a business help them meet a 2,000 yuan administrative fine. When the company refused, the officials immediately launched an administrative inspection of the business. Now, this system is imposing fines has become fully transparent. Is this really the new law?
The TikToker argued that the incident is far from isolated. In 2021, Hebei's Baizhou City imposed a 304 million yuan target for non-tax revenue, resulting in a crackdown on 2,547 businesses within 2 months, with a total of 67.2 million yuan in fines. On average, each business faced a fine of 26,400 yuan. In Shandong, Chengwu County, the local traffic department introduced a truck fine monthly pass, which allowed trucks to pay a flat fee of 1,000 to 2,000 yuan to avoid fines for a month. These practices have created a vicious cycle. When local governments face financial strains, fines become a tool for revenue generation, revealing a deep-seated problem in China's grassroots law enforcement and administrative fine systems. The TikToker says, Article 5 of the Administrative Penalty Law clearly states that penalties must correspond to the facts, nature, and circumstances of the violation. When fines are set as tasks to complete, it's essentially a blatant disregard for the very purpose of the law.
The 2 public officials in Lenshuijiang have been punished, but only these 2 individuals were held accountable. The decision makers behind this are being let off the hook. This is just like the old trick of blaming temporary workers. Who assigned the task of issuing fines? Who are the decision makers and what responsibility do they have? These issues need to be addressed. If we don't hold people accountable, this system of fines will return, and it'll just as bad as before.
With China's economy on the decline and local government finances in trouble, there has been an increase in the use of fine-based law enforcement to generate income from businesses and citizens. Many people have reported that highway tolls have increased, with charges doubling in some areas. Whenever the government needs money, they simply issue more fines. This has become a common approach for local governments. On June 24, during an interview in Shenzhen, local resident Chu Guanwu explained that financial difficulties faced by local governments have become widespread. He said local governments are now out of money, land sales are down, and they just can't handle their finances anymore. So they have to send out traffic police, urban management, and sanitation workers to issue fines. It's becoming more common to get fined, and ordinary people just can't handle it. A few days ago, I saw a young guy fined 2,000 yuan for riding his electric scooter without a helmet. The traffic police now fines 2,000 yuan if the scooter is carrying a person or anything else. For a regular family, 2,000 yuan is half a month's living expenses. The fines just keep getting harsher. Urban management officers have also faced criticism. A resident of Suzhou City in Jiangsu named Shu Qiang pointed out that despite a government decision last year to reduce interference with street vendors, the enforcement has not changed. Su said now they fine vendors 20 yuan per incident, which doesn't seem too harsh, but they keep issuing fines like a protection fee. In other cities, fines can reach 800 to 1,200 yuan. How can vendors make a living after these fines? Some online users argue that this isn't about management, it's extortion. With local governments struggling financially, they are resorting to aggressive tactics to seize money. On June 21st, China News Weekly reported that a farmer in Jiangsu was fined 100,000 yuan by the Market Supervision Bureau for selling uninspected mutton. Despite making only 180 yuan in profit, the public outcry led to the fine being reduced to 10,000 yuan. In addition to small businesses and street vendors, many medium-sized businesses have become frequent targets for fines. A private company in Shandong endured over 100 administrative inspections from 2021 to 2023, severely impacting its operations. A resident of Changshu City in Jiangsu named He Li shared that her daughter's clothing factory was fined 300,000 yuan for allegedly purchasing 150,000 yuan worth of clothing deemed to be infringing. She said, "They've gone crazy. Fines are being imposed at will. Some of the security products are of poor quality, but if you don't buy them, they will fine you for safety concerns." A restaurant owner in Taixing City in Jiangsu named Lu Heyang faced a similar situation. He said gas cylinders used to cost 80 yuan, but now we must switch to government-designated ones which cost 140 yuan each. If we don't buy them, they won't exchange our gas. Even household gas meters are being replaced with officially approved ones or the supply will be cut off. A resident from Changsha City in Hunan named Zhang Xiaonong revealed that his friend's garment factory was recently forced to purchase new escape ladders by the fire department or face fines. Later, the business was fined 500,000 yuan for product infringement by police from outside Hunan. He said, "What do they mean by offshore law enforcement? My friend is in Changsha and police from Hubei came over saying his products were infringing on copyrights. How does that make any sense?" Apart from businesses, many communities have also become target for fines. A resident of a neighborhood in Zhengzhou, Shun Hao, reported that there has been an increase in presence of urban management and traffic police near his community, focusing on fines for improperly parked bicycles. If you're caught, the fine is 50 to 100 yuan, and some people have been fined twice a day. Traffic police often set up traps at intersections, issuing tickets for parking violations. He added, "I heard there's even a commission system for traffic police." Mr. Zhen, a resident of Shanghai currently traveling in Guizhou, shared, "Everything is getting more expensive now. The highway tolls in Guizhou used to be 50 cents per kilometer, but now it's 1 yuan per kilometer, so they've doubled. Entrance fees for tourist sites used to be half price for people over 60, but now it's only for those over 65. Social media platforms have also seen multiple videos and comments pointing out the inconsistent standards and arbitrary law enforcement by local authorities. One TikToker user commented, "The fine amount depends entirely on their mood." Another said, "One store was fined 3,000 yuan today, while the store next door just received a verbal warning." According to a post by X-platform user Jin Yue on April 15, 2024 in Hangzhou, Zhejiang, a woman working in delivery collapsed mentally due to a fine for her electric scooter, and in an act of desperation, she jumped off the Xixing Bridge and died. The post reads, "With the economy in freefall, every penny of the fine they collect is the equivalent of days' worth of food for the people. It's the last straw that breaks the camel's back. The fines aren't just taking money, they're taking the people's future." The growing reliance on fines as a revenue source for local governments has raised public concern, sparking strong discontent among online users in China.
The national fines have skyrocketed to 3.7 trillion yuan in 2024. Does that number sound terrifying? Many people don't understand what penalty-based income means. What is penalty-based income? Simply put, it's the money and goods collected from traffic fines, courts, taxes, public security, and market supervision. That's all penalty-based income. This reliance on penalty-based income has grown in some regions. While tax revenues are generally declining nationwide, this type of non-tax income has actually risen. For example, in Guangxi, the fines collected in Wuzhou and Hezhou account for more than 20% of total tax revenue, leading the country by a wide margin. Of course, there's no problem with legitimate fines. For example, if you run a red light while riding an electric scooter, or if you don't wear a helmet or break the law in some way, those fines make sense. But some fines are hard to understand and completely unacceptable. For instance, a farmer was fined 30,000 yuan for buying diesel to fuel his equipment. 30,000 yuan is a huge amount for a farmer. Fines like this really upset the public. Fines should target those who are actually breaking the law, not ordinary citizens who are being treated like cash cows. So where does all this fine money go? What's it being used for? We don't know. We all know how tough life has been for ordinary people in recent years. It's tough for businesses too. Let's not make the people lose faith.
有没有聪明的算一算？
Have any clever people calculated this? 3.7 trillion yuan in 100 yuan bills. How many trucks would it take to carry that? If each truck is 9.6 meters long. And to all the truck drivers out there, how much have you contributed? Is it possible that in some areas they're surviving solely on these fines because they have no other income?
A user recently pointed out that the 370 million yuan figure is for the first 10 months of 2024. According to the latest data from China's Ministry of Finance, national non-tax revenue reached 4.5 trillion yuan in 2024, a 25.4% increase from the previous year. Among the regions, Hebei saw a 110% increase, Hubei 102%, and Shanxi 100%, although some provinces like Qinghai and Jilin saw a decline in penalty-based income, the drop was minimal. It's worth noting that some provinces have not disclosed their full-year penalty-based income. As the government's financial situation worsened, authorities have not scaled back but rather increased their reliance on non-tax revenue. Recently, the revised Public Security Administration punishment law has sparked further concern after it significantly raised fines. On June 27th, China's National People's Congress Standing Committee passed the revised law, which will go into effect on January 1st, 2026. One of the most notable changes is the increase in fines. Under the revised law, most fines have doubled. For example, a fine that used to be 1,000 yuan is now 2,000 yuan, and a 500 yuan fine has increased to 1,000 yuan. Several other violations saw an even higher increase, with fines rising by 5 to 10 times. For instance, the fine for forging or altering official documents or establishing illegal organizations have increased from 1,000 yuan to 5,000 yuan. Similarly, forced transactions or illegal rental of properties previously fined 500 yuan are now subject to a 5,000 yuan fine. Additionally, under the new regulations, police stations can issue fines up to 1,000 yuan directly, up from the previous limit of 500 yuan. One user commented and said, relying on fines highlights the incompetence of the law and the money-first approach to governance. With financial pressure mounting, they aren't thinking about reducing cost or solving the problem at the source, but instead increasing non-tax income. The authorities are clearly out of ideas. In recent years, due to the economic strain, local governments have increasingly relied on fines as a regular means of boosting revenue. On January 24, 2024, the Ministry of Finance revealed that China's general public budget revenue for the year reached 22 trillion yuan, an increase of 1.3% compared to the previous year. However, tax revenue dropped by 3.4% to 17.5 trillion yuan, while non-tax revenue increased by 25.4% to 4.5 trillion yuan. The increase in penalty-based income amounted for nearly 15% of this non-tax revenue. In China, non-tax revenue includes special income, income from the use of state-owned assets, administrative fees, penalty-based income, and government housing fund income. Penalty-based income mainly comes from local governments, particularly at the municipal and county levels. This income includes fines collected by public security, traffic, tax, court, and market regulation authorities, as well as fines from anti-smuggling efforts by police and market departments. China Business Network media outlet analyzed that since 2018, penalty-based income has accounted for about 10% of total non-tax revenue nationwide. By 2023, the top 3 provinces for penalty-based income made up around 20% of their total non-tax revenue. Commentator Tang Jingyuan noted that China's economy is facing a severe crisis, with frequent real estate and financial institution collapses and local governments burdened with massive debt. Many local governments have even started delaying giving out salary. He said, with no way out of the economy, squeezing money from the public has become one of the few remaining ways to make money. This reflects the reality that the Chinese government has lost its economic momentum. Now it can only rely on disguised extortion to raise funds from the people. In fact, this has become an institutionalized behavior within government agencies, especially in areas like traffic enforcement, urban management, and social governance. These departments are the most prominent examples. In other words, these systems have internal targets for fines, and they treat them as part of their performance metrics. Overseas commentators have been discussing the situation, with many expressing views like, under bandit rule, do the people even have a future? It suddenly feels like the end of past dynasties, and it seems like it won't be long before a modern version of the revived China society appears. Bank failures, a real estate market filled with unfinished buildings, and the deliberate hollowing out of foreign companies. These issues have been happening for years, but we haven't seen the Chinese government take real action. Now, it feels like a dead end. Raising fines to increase revenue is just a synonym for stealing money. The CCP is nearing its collapse, just like past feudal dynasties. The good days of the party are coming to an end. If the people don't resist, the CCP cult will continue to oppress, enslave them without restraint. That's the law of history. If you don't resist, you will never have a future. Analysts have pointed out that the Ministry of Public Security, as the core enforcement arm of the Chinese Communist Party, has always been heavily relied upon for maintaining stability and surveillance. Recently, the CCP amended the Public Security Administration Punishment Law, which is not just an upgrade of security measures, but a significant signal of the government's financial crisis. It indicates that the funding for the public security system must now come from more fee-based law enforcement to sustain its operations. This revised non-tax revenue policy primarily targets ordinary citizens rather than businesses or corporations. The main beneficiaries will be the police, traffic officers, and urban management officials, whose power will increase and their incomes will rise. Interestingly, there has been a surge of videos and posts online criticizing the penalty system and even directly accusing the police of robbing people. Some of these criticisms have been made by individuals using their real names and appearing on camera, openly accusing the police system of turning into legal robbery and suggesting that the monetization of law enforcement has become institutionalized corruption. Under China's usual online censorship logic, such videos would typically be removed quickly. However, these videos have not only survived, but have spread across various platforms. This anomaly likely points to another political signal: cracks in the internal control over online censorship and public relations. Specifically, the public security system is managed by both the State Council and the Political and Legal Affairs Commission. While public opinion controls falls under the purview of the Propaganda Department and the Central Office, the increasing internal power struggles at the top levels of the CCP have allowed criticism of the public security and legal systems to slip through online channels. This is essentially a subtle attack on the foundation of the CCP's control over stability. This is not an accident or a sign of newfound freedom of speech. Instead, it reflects one of the signs of intense power struggles within the CCP. Censorship is not just a technical boundary, but a line of power. When there's confusion or inconsistency in censorship standard, it's a sign of disorder in the instruction coming from the leadership. From both a technical and political perspective, the appearance of these critical videos almost certainly must have been tolerated. They not only reflect the public's dissatisfaction, but could also be part of a deliberate effort by certain factions to expose the greed and overreach of the public security system. This could weaken Xi Jinping's reliance and control over the political and legal system. In summary, the CCP's use of the Public Security Administration Punishment Law to extract money from the public in order to fund the police force may appear to be an issue of financial strain. However, it also reveals a trend of self-destruction within the regime. On one hand, the government depends on its enforcement machinery to maintain stability, but on the other, financial strain forces the machinery to resort to extorting money. Meanwhile, cracks appearing in the censorship system suggesting that the gears within this machine are starting to slip. The growing public frustration could soon destroy this broken system.